Set the tizzy top, parasuit and
Hey y'all, my name is Angelique. If you're new, welcome to my channel. If not, then welcome back. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how I make a double strap bikini top and bottom skirt. I literally leave for a vacation in 2 days. I'm going to be going to Miami with some friends, literally last minute spontaneous trip, and I am so stressed. I am so stressed because I'm trying to make my little vacation pieces, and yeah, I haven't started it yet, so you guys are going to be seeing me make this literally a day before my flight. So let's get into it. But yeah, stay tuned for the tutorial, guys, and you'll see how to make this cute bikini. We're just gonna try to do this fast, okay? It's gonna be a quick and easy tutorial. I'm super excited to share it with you guys because I know it's going to be so much fun to make, and I can't wait to see you guys make it. All right, y'all, like I said, we're gonna try to do this quick, so let's get right into it. The first measurement that you're gonna need to take is under your boob, and you're gonna start from like the middle of your chest and then go around your boob and just like mark where you want your coverage to be. But I'd say it's better to start a little bit wider because when we put the drawstrings in, we can shorten it anyways. I think I'm gonna go for like this much, and this is gonna be my underbust measurement. It's about 6 1/4 inches, but I think I'm gonna go for 6 1/2 just to make sure that the triangle is big enough to cover. Okay, so the next measurement that we're gonna take is our cup height, the triangle. And we're gonna start from where we were measuring and then just go up to where you feel like you want your triangle to stop, like how much height of coverage you think you need. So I think I'm actually gonna go for about 6 inches, and that stops right here. That is 6 inches. All right, so now we're gonna start drafting our top triangle pattern. And for this, you wanna make sure that you have your measurements and you have paper that's big enough to add it on there. And we are going to be adding seam allowance, so you wanna make sure that it's long enough and wide enough to draw your pattern. I'm using pattern paper, but copy paper is fine. You might have to tape a few together, but that works as well. I'm gonna try to record this the best way that I can without it being flipped or mirrored when I'm done, but yeah, I'm gonna come closer so you guys can see what I'm doing. We're gonna start by drawing our width measurement, and that's just gonna go horizontally across the paper. My width or underbust measurement that I want for my triangle is gonna be 6 1/2 inches. Next, we're gonna draw the height of our triangle, but for this, you wanna make sure that you start directly in the middle of your width. So you can actually just take that measurement, divide it by 2, and then make sure that you start your point from there. So I'm gonna find the middle of my line, and I'm gonna mark where the middle is. Go from there and draw a straight line up. Now we're going to go from both sides and draw straight lines. Go make sure you connect it directly to the end of your width point. Okay. Now we have our triangle, and before we cut it out, we're gonna add seam allowance to it. For the sides of the triangle, I'm gonna add 1/2 inch seam allowance. And it does help if you have a clear ruler because you can see and make sure that your line is completely accurate. Do 1/2 inch seam allowance on both sides. Now for the tip of the points and the bottom, instead of adding 1/2 inch seam allowance, I'm actually going to add 3/4. So I'm gonna start from here, measure where my 3/4 line is, and then go straight across. If you need to, connect these lines as well. And yeah, it's going to be a horizontal line straight across. I'm just gonna turn my paper so this is easier for me to draw, but same thing, I'm gonna find my 3/4 mark and just draw a horizontal line from there. Okay. And like I said, if you need to, go ahead and just connect the line. And there we go. So now we have our triangle top pattern with seam allowance added. And basically we're just gonna cut it out now, going around our seam allowance. Now, for the sake of time, we're going to be using a pre-made pattern, and this one I actually found on Etsy. Really good. I'll leave a direct link underneath below, and this one's actually perfect because it goes up to a size 4XL. So that's great. We have options for everyone, which I love. You want to print it out. You're gonna like cut around the edges where the black border is, and then tape the pieces together and cut out whichever color your size is last. This is what the pattern looks like once you tape it together. Now I'm just gonna find my size. I'm a size small, and that's this blue dotted line. So I'm just gonna cut out all around the blue dotted line around the pattern. And we're gonna do that for the back and the front piece. So now what we're gonna do is change the pattern a little bit. We're just using this one as a guideline. We're not gonna follow it exactly. We're just using this to help us create what we want. So I want mine to have a little bit of a V cut in the front and the back. So what I'm gonna do is measure how far down I want that V to go. I think I like 2 inches, so I'm gonna line this up with the edge of my pattern and then mark a line where 2 inches is. And now I'm just gonna line up my ruler going diagonally from the point down to the 2 inches, and I'm gonna draw a straight line from there. And now we have this cut. We're gonna do the same to the back now and drop 2 inches going down the middle. Make sure that you're lining up your lines from the edge of the corner to the middle of your fold line. Now that I made the lines on both patterns, we can go ahead and cut it out. So I actually just realized that because this line doesn't have seam allowance, I actually would have had to go down 1.5 inches instead of 2 inches for this, because when we sew it, we're going to be folding it under a 1/2 inch. But if you want precise measurements, then make sure that you don't go down that 1/2 inch at whatever measurement you're going to use, so that way you have enough space for seam allowance as well. Now that our pattern pieces are created, we can start cutting our fabric and getting ready to sew. So now we're going to take our pattern piece and line it up at the edge to the edge of our fabric, and make sure that your fabric is folded. Mine is folded. I started at one end and just pulled out enough fabric so that this piece can be cut. I don't like to cut in the middle of my fabric. You want to save as much fabric as you can, so we're going to be starting from the end of one side. You unfold it, you'll have a piece like this. Now we're going to be cutting out our triangle pieces, and for this one it's cut to. I have my right side spacing out for this one. Now we have our top and bottom pieces cut out. It's okay if the lines aren't super straight because we're going to be folding it under anyways. We're going to start by sewing our tops, but first we need to prep them. So what we're going to do is mark all of our seam allowances on the wrong side of the fabric. The sides of our fabric were a 1/2 inch seam allowance, so we're going to draw that. I'm just using a white colored pencil. This says it's for paper and whatever, it's like an art pencil, but nobody's really gonna see the inside anyways, and it'll probably wash out, so I'm just gonna use this. If you have chalk or something else, like a washable pen, definitely use that. Like we should remember, the top and the bottom are 3/4 seam allowance. So I'm gonna go ahead and make that line now. Now we have our seam allowances on both sides of our pieces. Now we're gonna go ahead and get ready to start. To start sewing, we're just gonna faux serge or either serge all sides of the fabric, and that's just to help it look a little bit cleaner. So if you have a serger at home, then definitely do that. And like I said, just make sure that you're not taking off any fabric. We're just gonna do that directly along the outside edges of the fabric. Also, what helps to get it directly on the edge of the fabric without sewing off of it or going too inside is making sure that your fabric is lined up with the end of your presser foot. So just make sure you're getting directly along that edge. Once we faux serge all of the sides, we're gonna start by sewing the longer sides of our triangle, and we're gonna fold in or fold under that 1/2 inch seam allowance that we created, and then stitch all the way down. And since we're working with spandex fabric, we're gonna use a zigzag stitch. When you're sewing with any type of stretch fabric, you wanna use zigzag. So I just put the length as 1.5 and the width as 1, just so you can't really see the zigzag too much on the front of the fabric, because I just don't want that style for this. So yeah, go to that line we created, kind of try to go from there and just fold under 1/2 inch. And let's start sewing. So for this part, we're actually gonna try to stay along the raw edge, as close to that as possible. I think a good way to tell that you're getting close to this side as well is making sure that you're on the inside of where we did the faux serge stitch. So when you're done, it's gonna look like this. And if you have like a little bit kind of like overlapped, that's totally fine, because we need this piece anyways to fold it over like that when we're gonna go and create our opening. So make sure that you don't cut off the excess fabric that's at the top. I'm just showing you this one as well. We're going to take the top, the tip of the triangle, and fold it over like this. And basically you want to fold it directly where they cross, so like about here, or you'll actually feel it kind of like just naturally fold where it's supposed to as well. Basically you just fold it over, and you want to start from about where they cross like this. This is what the piece looks like right now. This is what it looks like from this view. You can kind of see the threads crossing over, and we're going to sew it about here, but you want to make sure that you're starting in between the other zigzag stitch that you created, because that's what's going to make it look like it's only inside of this box. It's just going to look cleaner. So when you close it shut, it's going to look like this. Starting to be cute already. This pink is all I had, but honestly it kind of adds like a nice little pop of color, so I'm not too mad at it. This is what the inside looks like. But anyways, after you sew this, and actually before too, you kind of just want to make sure that the tunnel is long enough for when we're gonna thread our strings through. So you can like maybe just stick like a pencil through here and just make sure that it's wide enough. The drawstrings are only gonna be about a 1/2 inch anyways, but because they're skinny, I think this is good. You still want it to be a little snug just to make sure that when you're tying it and wearing it, it's still a little secure. So this is good. And then actually, once it's sewn as well too, and you make sure that the tunnel is large enough for a drawstring to go through, then you can take whatever leftover part and just cut that off, because it's gonna lay flatter and more comfortable when you're wearing it. And this is what it's looking like. It's getting there. Now to sew the bottom, we're just gonna go ahead and fold it under at the seam allowance that we made, which was 3/4. Just go ahead and fold that, and then we're gonna sew it down, making sure that we stay inside of these outside seams, so that way everything is like inside the triangle, just like we did with this top stitch. Just make sure that you stay in between these 2 stitches. And it's kind of easy to see when it's folded over, because you can tell here that's where that stitch is. And because we didn't curve the bottom of our line, when you fold it over, fabric is gonna overlap a little bit, leaving like some raw edge out. But what I'm gonna try to do, since it's only a little bit hanging over, is just sew it and maybe like ruche it a little bit, so that way there's no raw edges that can be seen from the side. So just try to like keep it inside if you can. If not, it's okay to just cut it. Just make sure that you don't cut off the part where they're connecting here once it's folding over, because we need that to make sure that the top is going to be secure. For this, I'm actually finding that if you stretch the fabric, you can sew it so that like there's no overlapping edge, and it's actually going to naturally just curve kind of like a cup line, and it's also falling right on the inside of the faux serge stitch. So it's going to be on the inside instead of the outside. So I actually forgot to stay in between these lines, but honestly, it still looks okay. It's coming out pretty good. This is the back. Make sure that there's a good enough channel for it to go through on the top and the bottom. But yes, our project is coming along really good. We have our 2 triangle top pieces made. We're gonna go ahead and wait to start the strings, because that's really easy. So I think what we should do now is just go ahead and skip to the bottoms, because we still have to do some more adjustments to the pattern in order to complete it. So yeah, let's go ahead and start working on it. Okay guys, so this is the part where it's gonna start to get a little real. We're gonna be making some adjustments, but I promise it's gonna be easy once everything is explained. So let's get to it. So now we're gonna be working on the cutout part of the bikini bottom. And what you want to do is just pick which side you want to have the strings or the cutout part. And that's why these are facing the right side. So for me, I want the strings to be on my left hip when I put it on. Okay y'all, so I actually caught a mistake. Thank God that I tried to kind of see what it looks like before I start doing anything, but because this one isn't reversible and we're going to be sewing it flat like this, that means that whichever side you want the cutout to be on, it's actually going to be the opposite on the back fabric piece. So because I said I want the strings to be on my left hip when I'm wearing it, that means that on the back fabric piece, I'm actually going to be making that line on this side instead of over here. Start from the edge, lining up with the V, and then make your line going across like that. Okay guys, so once we figure out where our cutouts are gonna go and make sure that it's on the correct side for both front and back pieces, what we're gonna do is measure the top of that line. So this one for me is at 6.5 inches, and doing the same thing, measuring the top edge of where the cutout is gonna go. This side is also 6.5 inches. You just want to write down those measurements on a piece of paper, and I just called it high hip. I don't think that's really what it is, but that's just what I'm gonna call it because it's easy to remember and I feel like it makes sense. So you're just gonna write the measurement down and we're gonna add them together. That's gonna be the length of our string pieces. Once you have the measurements written down, you can go ahead and cut off the part where the cutouts are gonna go, because now we don't need it anymore. Now that we have the cutout sides of our fabric cut off, we're gonna go ahead and just do another faux serge along the edges of the fabric, and we can do that to both sides. So I actually went ahead and just marked my 1/2 inch seam allowance along all sides as well, just so it's easier when I do the next part. But for now, we're just gonna do a faux serge along the edge of all sides of the fabric. For this stitch, I'm actually gonna go ahead and still use my serge just because it still stretches and I think that it'll be a little bit more secure. And I just wanna make sure that this part is sewn down good. So I use a faux serge stitch and sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So now that we have our pieces connected together like this, the next thing we're gonna do is hem the sides of the fabric by folding it under 1/2 inch, and we're gonna sew it down along the sides. But for this part, I'm gonna make sure that I keep this together open so that it can lay flat like this and it's not bulky when we're wearing it. So I'm realizing now as I'm sewing that like it's going over the faux serge, so I think that's also a good guideline to help you when you're sewing and hemming it. Now that we did both sides, we're gonna go ahead and hem the top. Just fold that 1/2 inch, and we're gonna do the same thing, just zigzag stitch, sew all the way down. we have our pieces attached front and back together. This is what it's starting to look like, and oh my gosh guys, I'm so excited. It's literally coming out so good. Now we're gonna work on the straps for the bottom piece. What we need to do first is go back to that measurement that we took before. And like I said, mine was 6.5 for both back and front pieces, which is gonna give me a 13-inch total. So that's the length that I'm going to make the straps that are gonna go on the bottom piece. And the width is pretty much up to you. You guys did see the picture that I used as my reference. Let's get started cutting out the length and width of our bottom strap pieces. I'm actually just gonna go ahead and close these sides of the bikini bottom, and basically I'm just sewing these at 1/2 inch seam allowance. This is what the other side looks like. So we're almost done with the bottoms. And this is what it's looking like, so cute. Now to attach these strings, what we're gonna do is just line it up. Well, the first piece, we're gonna line it up directly at the edge of the swimsuit. So that way there's no overlap or anything. It looks like it's just coming directly out of this side. And I'll come closer. Just make sure that it's like directly on the edge. And from the inside, what you're gonna do is actually place it 1/2 inch down. And you can tell because this piece is sewn at 1/2 inch down. And where we sew it is gonna be directly at the edge, the raw edge. And we're gonna try to get that stitch in the same place that this one is. If not, it's okay, but it's just gonna look cleaner if we can get it directly where the one on the outside is, because then you won't really be able to tell that there's a stitch there. So to attach the other one, I'm just going to show this real quick. What I did was actually just measure the distance between the top and bottom on the front and back pattern piece. And I did that by taking one strap, seeing like how thick it is. Seems like it's about 1/2 inch. So look at 1/2 inch and then start from there, measure to see how long. There's going to be another 1/2 inch at this side, and the distance between the two, that's what I'm going to use to help me find where to place the second strap on here. And you do that with the front and the back. Like I said, I just took the measurement real quick, and it's looking like it's about a 4-inch distance. It's not exactly the same, but honestly I think it'll be okay if I do the 4-inch. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, starting from where I made my 4-inch mark, I'm gonna place the strap there. have raw edge to raw edge, no overlapping. And I'm gonna sew this down, trying to sew on top of where the other stitch is because I want it to look clean in the front. This is how she's looking so far. I'm gonna try it on to make sure that the measurements of the straps are correct, and we'll go from there. All right, y'all, so I actually just tried it on and I'm like so shook. It looks so good, but I'm gonna add another detail to the bottom. So this is where I sewed together the other side of the hip at the 1/2 inch seam allowance, and it's kind of like this on the inside, but what I'm gonna do is just fold it flat, and then we can just sew on the inside of both seams. This is what that seam looks like now. A little messy, but still good. And yeah, our bottom is pretty much done, so now I'm gonna go back to the top. Hey y'all, it is almost done. So now we just need to make our straps for the bikini top. The skirt part is super easy, but as far as the bikini, we're pretty much almost done, so